Truistery Vibes warmly welcomes all our beloved listeners. We're so glad to see you again in our familiar time slot.
Today,
Truistery Vibes brings you a brand new story, one that we hope will touch your heart and stay with you. As you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing the quote or moment that left the deepest impression on you. Wishing you a wonderful and meaningful listening experience. Aurelia, Rynn, Moonshadow had always believed that love, much like art, arrived on its own terms, unexpected, vivid, and capable of transforming every corner of the soul. On the crisp autumn afternoon when Draven nightfall led her by the hand through the warm glow of Edison bulbs and the scent of aged oak, she felt as though she had stepped into one of her own illustrations, a world suspended between twilight and dawn. The Ironleaf Clock Tower, a hidden gem tucked away on a cobblestone side street in Portland, had become their secret refuge. Antique gears turned in brass casings, casting intricate shadows across exposed brick walls. Rynn and Draven had shared countless whispered promises over steaming cups of parchment brown coffee, beneath vaults of ivy that crept through loft-style windows. Today, though, every familiar detail seemed charged with new significance. Draven guided Rynn toward the center platform, where a single pedestal held a low, rounded velvet box illuminated by a solitary spotlight. The cafe's muted hum of conversation faded, replaced by the soft click of clock hands marking an ancient cadence. Ryn's heart fluttered, her breath catching in her throat. "Rynn," Draven began, his voice steady even as his sapphire-gray eyes mirrored anticipation. "From the moment I first saw your sketch of the Celestine skyline, I knew I wanted to build our future together, layer by layer. Like a masterwork of artistry. You bring color to my world in ways I never imagined possible." Ryn's fingertips tingled. The pedestal's velvet box quivered under his touch as he opened it to reveal an Art Deco inspired diamond ring, its facets echoing the constellations she so often painted. Beneath the soft light, the band glimmered like starlight trapped in metal. But before she could speak, Draven lifted his hand to a nearby pedestal where 999 long-stemmed, ebon twilight roses, each with petals as dark as obsidian kissed by violet, stretched skyward. They formed a cascade of blossoms so breathtaking that Rynn felt tears prick her eyes. Each rose represented a promise, a moment they had shared over the past 4 years. "When I first met you," he continued, drawing her closer, "I thought I was learning about art. It turns out I was learning how to love. Will you marry me?" For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. The only sound was the rhythmic ticking of the clock tower's great gear, echoing through the vaulted ceiling. Then, without hesitation, Rynn placed her hand in his. Her voice trembled with joy and certainty. "Yes," she whispered, breathless. 1,000 times yes." As Draven slipped the ring onto her finger, the cafe erupted in gentle applause, friends and strangers united by the magic of that moment. Rynn looked around at familiar faces bathed in golden light, each one smiling at this new chapter unfolding before her. In that space between one tick and the next, Rynn knew her life had become something far greater than any canvas could contain. A living masterpiece woven from love, promise, and the infinite possibilities of tomorrow. Aurelia, Rynn Moonshadow had built her identity around art. From her earliest memories, smudging watercolor rainbows across kindergarten paper, to her last triumphant gallery showing, she believed that creativity could conquer any obstacle. Yet when autumn's first frost drifted through Portland's cobblestone streets, Rynn felt her passions freeze over, as if every brushstroke carried the weight of her own disappointments. It began with the rejection letters. 6 in 6 months, each envelope stamped with a polite, regrettably, "Your work does not align with our current direction." Clarion Jewelers, Lanier Luxury, Meridian Designs, names that once inspired awe now burned her skin like acid. She replayed their critiques in her mind, fixating on phrases like, "not quite the right aesthetic," or "we encourage you to continue exploring your distinct style," as though her style itself were the problem. Mornings dragged on. Rynn would climb from bed into faded sweatpants, hair in a careless knot, and shuffle through a pile of leftover takeout containers for breakfast. In her studio loft, rows of empty canvases beckoned like silent reminders of her creative failure. A single half-finished sketch lay pinned to her drawing board, a delicate rendering of a phoenix emerging from ash, wings outstretched in blazing glory. She could not face finishing it. The mirror became her harshest critic. Every day, she mocked the reflection staring back, a once vibrant artist now hollow-eyed and hunched, skin pallid, cheeks lost their familiar glow. Her confidence, like her slender frame, had dwindled. She blamed herself, convinced that if only she were more disciplined, ate less, worked harder, pushed through the fatigue, her art might again sing with promise. Her friends noticed. Nina, her closest companion since grade school, confronted her after a hasty visit. "Rynn, you've gone missing in plain sight," she said, gently but firmly. "You're too thin, too tired, too absent." Tears had threatened Rynn's composure, but she shrugged off the concern, feigning a busy schedule. It was easier than admitting that the very thing she loved, painting, now felt like punishment. One rainy evening, the Eiffel Tower, shaped paperweight on her desk, caught her eye, a souvenir from a triumphant trip to Paris during college. She had wandered Montmartre's streets, painting street musicians and café scenes, her heart light with possibility. That memory ached so fiercely, she nearly collapsed against her desk. She scribbled in her journal, "I feel lost." The line trembled on the page before she shut the book and left it to gather dust. Her breaking point arrived one gray Saturday. She'd spent the morning binging pastries, a habit she'd once found impossible to maintain, then forced herself to the easel, hoping to channel the sugar rush into creativity. Instead, her brush hovered, limp over the canvas. Anguish welled up, anger at herself, frustration with her art, resentment at a world that seemed to have moved on without her. She flung the brush down, paint splattering across her palette and floorboards in an abstract echo of her turmoil. That afternoon, a text pinged her phone. Kalen Stormrider was back in Portland and wanted coffee. Kalen, his name carried memories of chalk dust studios and shared critiques, of him bounding across campus fields with track spikes gleaming in the sun. They drifted apart after graduation, him chasing athletic dreams, her chasing artistic ones. In that moment of desperation, Rynn typed back, "Sure. Today." They met at Ironwood Forge Gym and Cafe, a wood and steel hybrid space Kalen co-founded to unite fitness with community spirit. The cafe corner exhaled warmth, lemon lavender tea mingling with the tang of kettlebell rubber. Kalen emerged from behind a weight rack, now broader-shouldered, his hair trimmed short. He grinned with genuine relief. "You look like you need caffeine and a friend." Seated across from him, Rynn noticed how his steady presence diffused her panic. Instead of platitudes, he asked precise questions. "What's the real challenge? What do you want to reclaim?" When she faltered, he offered her turmeric latte and silent encouragement. Their conversation stretched over 2 hours, during which she unburdened her self-doubt for the first time in months. He listened, then proposed a plan. "Let's start small. 3 workouts a week, whatever feels manageable. No extremes. Pair it with home-cooked meals, and carve out 20 minutes daily for creative play. Not commissions, just options." His suggestion felt radical. In her mind, recovery demanded grand gestures, week-long retreats, intense training, all-or-nothing diets. But his words landed softly. Baby steps. He invited her to try a gentle yoga flow the next morning, emphasizing mindful movement rather than calorie burn. That night, she stared at her painting of the phoenix again. The half-formed wings looked sad and drooping. She sighed, then reached for her journal. She wrote, "Day 1. I spoke the truth to Kalen." Above it, she drew a tiny flame. She fell asleep with a faint pulse of hope. Morning came too quickly. She arrived at Ironwood Forge at dawn, greeted by the clank of steel and hushed conversations. Kalen led her through basic yoga poses, downward dog, plank, warrior. Her muscles protested, but each breath grounded her in the present. Afterward, they shared green smoothies, their mini tang a shock to her sugar-addicted palate. She felt lighter, if only by a fraction. Back in her loft, she painted that night. Not the phoenix, but a simple silhouette of a tree trunk being cut by warm light. She called it new growth. No expectations, no pressure, just the act of creation. When she signed her name, she recognized the first genuine smile in weeks. The following days unfolded in surprising harmony. Rynn's mornings blended workouts, sometimes a treadmill walk, other times kettlebell circuits, with kitchen experiments, quinoa bowls, chickpea stews, roasted vegetables. She discovered that nourishing herself sparked renewed clarity. Evenings found her sketching loose compositions rather than agonizing over details. One drawing, titled Spark, captured the precise moment she first jogged a full minute without stopping. She taped it above her desk as a reminder. Her body responded. Jeans that once bit at her hips now fit comfortably. Necklines that she'd abandoned returned to her wardrobe. But more than that, her spirit felt tenderly mended. She wasn't chasing impossible standards, she was reclaiming her agency. One afternoon, Kaylin invited her to test the refurbished boxing ring. Release frustration, he said with a shrug. Gloves on, she delivered hesitant jabs at the bag. With each thud, the echoes of rejection letters and self-critique seemed to morph into fuel. By the session's end, her shoulders ached pleasantly, and she laughed, a genuine, unforced sound. Inspired, she returned to her studio, deciding the time had come to complete the Phoenix series. She cleared away stale canvases and set up fresh ones in a row. She labeled them Phoenix Reborn No. 1 through #10. Over the next weeks, she painted in bursts of color so electric they nearly glowed. Fiery oranges, molten reds, and molten gold highlights that danced like embers. She crafted each bird in mid-ascent, feathers stretching skyward, eyes resolved with fierce determination. Every evening, she documented her progress in her journal. Mood, artwork notes, reflections on the day's workout. She charted how painting with vigor mirrored her physical strength gains. The emotional dips, bad days of self-doubt, were balanced by days of triumphant breakthroughs. Her social media feed, once dormant, began to light up with followers who resonated with her journey. Comments poured in. Your resilience shines through. I feel my own phoenix reborn. Thank you for sharing your struggle. Each note felt like a brushstroke of validation. By late winter, she had all 10 canvases complete and packed into crates labeled for shipment. Rynn secured a private showing at Starlit Beacon Gallery in Chicago, a venue known for uplifting, community-driven exhibitions. The opening night invitation read elegantly. Aurelia Moonshadow invites you to Phoenix Reborn, a celebration of trials, ashes, and new beginnings. When she arrived at Starlit Beacon, she was greeted by warm lights and a hushed excitement. Guests drifted between paintings, their footsteps echoing softly. She overheard one viewer whisper, "It's like I can feel the flames move." Another remarked, "Every stroke speaks of triumph." Standing by her art, Rynn felt tears threaten, but these were tears of gratitude, not despair. Kaylin stood beside her, eyes shining. "You did this," he murmured. She squeezed his hand, overwhelmed by how far she'd come. For months, she'd been the artist trapped beneath her own failures. Now she was the creator once more, forging beauty from pain. That night, as she packed her sketchbook and partially used paint tubes, Rynn realized that the phoenix she'd painted was more than a motif. It was her living metaphor. She had fallen into despair, been consumed by smoke and shadow, and emerged entirely transformed. Her wings were scarred but stronger, her spirit tempered in the fires of perseverance. When spring's first cherry blossoms unfurled beneath Portland's drizzling skies, she celebrated with a quiet sunrise paddle on the Willamette River, her body leaner, her mind clearer. She dipped her paddle into the still water, sending ripples that caught the sunrise like spilled liquid gold. In that calm dawn, she whispered her new mantra, "From ashes I rise." Aurelia, Rynn, Moonshadow stepped onto the shore knowing she would never be bound by self-doubt again. The phoenix had indeed been reborn, not only on her canvases, but in her soul. And with every pulse of her heartbeat, she carried forward the truth that true artistry is born from the courage to face our darkest moments. After the resurrecting thrill of Phoenix Reborn, Aurelia, Rynn, Moonshadow's world brimmed with possibility, but she'd learned that true transformation also thrived in unexpected alliances. Enter Lissa Veil Whisper, an ethereal presence who glided into Rynn's life like morning mist. At 27, Lissa was already a celebrated travel vlogger in Los Angeles. Her Instagram feed a tapestry of sun-drenched cliffs, hidden desert valleys, and the glittering neon of late-night street markets. Yet beneath her flattering angles and effortless vogue, Lissa carried a deep-seated insecurity rooted in a childhood spent among the redwoods of Humboldt County, where her family's rustic cabin life stood in stark contrast to the gloss of digital fame. Their friendship began on an overcast Saturday at Midnight Reverie, a pop-up atelier in Portland's Pearl District where Rynn displayed selected Phoenix Reborn works. Lissa arrived by chance. Camera slung over one shoulder, her sapphire blue eyes alight with genuine curiosity. She paused before Phoenix No. 4, a painting of a bird mid-ascent, flaming feathers dissolving into star patterns. "It's like it's breaking free from gravity," Lissa whispered, toes practically hovering off the gallery floor. Rynn, perched nearby on a reclaimed wood bench, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and replied, "That painting is about surrendering to your own potential. Sometimes you have to let go of everything that holds you down." Lissa turned, half-smile blossoming. "Letting go is something I've never mastered. I chase adventures, but never feel anchored." That confession, raw and unguarded, struck Rynn. Despite Lissa's polished vlogger persona, here stood someone equally vulnerable. She invited Lissa for coffee at Mist and Ember Cafe, the very haven where Rynn once sought refuge, and watched as the two of them navigated initial small talk, Lissa recounting her latest road trip through Mojave, Rynn describing her spark painting. Between sips of smoky cardamom chai, they found common ground, a love for fleeting sunsets and the way old brick buildings bore witness to hidden stories. Within days, Lissa accepted Rynn's invitation to model for a new series titled Luminous Whispers. The concept was simple yet intimate. Rynn wanted to capture the fleeting interplay of shadow and light on Lissa's profile, her cheekbones glinting like desert sandstone at dawn, her lashes casting tendrils of shade. They transformed Rynn's loft into a makeshift studio, silk drapes layered over windows to filter afternoon light, mismatched rugs to muffle footfalls, and a single bare bulb to tease out depth. On the first session, Lissa arrived in a soft mauve jumpsuit, hair loosely curled. Rynn directed her to perch on an antique drafting stool, then gently adjusted a strand of hair that veiled her left eye. "Tilt your chin down, let the light kiss your jawline," Rynn murmured, her paintbrush hovering over canvas. The soft hiss of her charcoal pencil was the only sound until Lissa shifted and Rynn's brush touched the board for the first time. As the days passed, the painting sessions became ritual. Morning preparation of spiced matcha lattes, afternoon hours of measured brushstrokes, and evenings spent discussing everything from favorite films to childhood embarrassments. Lissa revealed that she'd started vlogging to escape feelings of insignificance, the sensation that, no matter how many followers she gathered, she remained unseen. Rynn confessed her own sense of creative stall, how her art felt disconnected from the vibrancy she once knew. One twilight evening, Lissa surprised Rynn with a gift. A single wildflower she'd plucked from the cafe's hanging planters, its petals dusted with dew. "This reminded me of you," Lissa said softly, "because even when you feel wilted, you bloom." Tucked inside was a note in Lissa's elegant script. "To my muse and my mirror, thank you for helping me see my own light." Rynn pressed the bloom between the pages of her sketchbook, a tear sliding down her cheek. In that soft gesture, She realized she wasn't alone in her journey of rediscovery. As the Luminous Whispers portraits neared completion, the pair organized a small showing in Portland's Eclipse Gallery, a minimalist space known for elevating fresh talent. Rynn's paintings of Lys's serene profile were arranged on charcoal-hued walls. Overhead LEDs cast just enough glow to accentuate Lys's almond eyes and delicate collarbones. At opening night, Lyssa wore a deep emerald gown that echoed the painting's verdant accents, and Rynn introduced her with genuine pride. "This piece captures vulnerability and brilliance. Lyssa shared her story, so I could share mine." The crowd's response, applause, quiet gasps, whispered accolades, cemented their bond. They spent the evening as co-creators and confidants, laughing beneath the soft hum of gallery lights, parents long gone, past failures left unspoken. Over the next month, their friendship deepened into a powerful creative partnership. They embarked on an overnight road trip to the Columbia River Gorge, where Lyssa recorded footage for her vlog and Rynn sketched the soaring cliffs. Under a moonlit sky, by a waterfall's edge, they spoke of dreams yet to be realized. Lyssa envisioned launching a documentary series on hidden American artists. Rynn imagined a collaborative mural that would weave their stories across a city wall. Yet even in this magical camaraderie, seeds of tension sprouted unawares. Rynn's dependence on Lyssa's presence in her work gnawed at her emerging independence. She worried her art would become just another extension of Lyssa's spotlight. Lyssa, in turn, felt pangs of guilt for living on the road, sometimes missing sessions as she chased vlogging deadlines. Early mornings found Rynn alone in the loft, brush poised but heart uncertain. Late nights discovered Lyssa editing footage in the cafe's back room, eyes red from fatigue. Despite these minor cracks, their friendship remained an anchor, an enchantment of mutual respect and shared vulnerability. Rynn learned to let Lyssa see her at her weakest, and Lyssa found in Rynn the unwavering support she'd always craved. Each painted portrait, each recorded vlog segment, each whispered confidence by waterfall or candlelight wove them closer together. Their connection crackled with creative electricity. Rynn's brush brought Lyssa's images to life, while Lyssa's lens captured Rynn's art in motion. In those days, Rynn often mused that friendship itself could be a form of magic, rare and potent, able to illuminate hidden corners of one's soul. She would sit in her loft at dawn, coffee in hand, reflecting on how far she'd come from that artist who felt shackled by self-doubt. Lyssa's laughter and fierce loyalty had rekindled her passion, just as Kaylin's disciplined kindness had restored her faith in herself. And yet, beneath the warmth of shared successes, an unspoken question lingered. Could creative brilliance and personal bonds coexist without one eclipsing the other? As Rynn laid down the final strokes on Luminous Whispers number 8, she sensed the answer would reveal itself in time, through tests of trust, the courage to set boundaries, and the ever-shifting balance between muse and master, friend and artist. For now, the enchantment held, and they reveled in the rare alchemy of two souls finding refuge in each other's light. Aurelia Rynn Moonshadow had envisioned every element of her wedding at Silverwood Vine Hollow as if it were preordained by some benevolent cosmic force. She pictured the vine-laced arbor on a gentle hillside, the scent of ivy and jasmine drifting through warm summer air, and her dearest friends and family dressed in pastel hues, standing witness as she and Draven Nightfall took their vows at sunset. Rynn had even rehearsed her own wedding day smile, the soft curve of her lips, and the empty gasp of amazement she'd share with him when he revealed his bespoke cuff links engraved with her initials. 2 days before the rehearsal dinner, Rynn arrived at Silverwood just before noon, her heart buoyant as she stepped over the threshold of the tasting room. Elm green trellises framed the entrance, and clusters of ivory peonies danced in the gentle breeze. She carried a leather-bound clipboard, its cover hand-painted with constellations and moon phases, each page meticulously detailing final vendor confirmations. Catering, confirmed, Chef Marisol's signature canapés. Florist, confirmed, ethereal white peonies and silver eucalyptus. Music, confirmed, String quartet plus harpist. Seating chart. Finalized 50 guests. Photography. Confirmed Luna and Prism Studios. The tasting room's French doors stood open, inviting her into a cavern of resonates. Crystal goblets chimed by unseen hands, the hush of rich burgundy curtains, and a low hum of conversation from behind a lavender-scented curtain. Rynn let out a contented sigh. Everything is perfect, she thought. She found Draven Nightfall arranging silver platters of hors d'oeuvres on a long oak table at the room's center. He wore the charcoal gray suit she'd chosen, tailored to his broad shoulders and tapered to his slim waist. In his hand was a tray of prosciutto-wrapped figs, goat cheese crostini, and miniature panna cottas garnished with honeyed blueberries. "Hey, you," Draven greeted, flashing that warm smile that made her pulse leap. He walked toward her, the click of his polished tux shoes echoing. "I figured we'd sample the canapés one last time." Rynn's nerves fluttered, thrilled anticipation mixed seamlessly with deep affection. "They look incredible," she said, stepping forward. "Your choice of canapés is perfect. Every flavor will pair beautifully with the Pinot Gris." Before she could reach for a canopy, the tasting room doors eased open behind Draven, and Lissa Veilwhisper stepped through. Lissa's presence should have felt welcome. She was Rynn's friend and muse. Collaborator on the Luminous Whispers series, someone Rynn trusted deeply. But in that instant, the world tilted. Lissa moved in Draven's direction as though summoned by silent electricity. She wore a flowing sapphire gown that caught the light like water on a moonlit lake. Her auburn hair fell in perfect waves. Rynn paused mid-step, heart stalling. She watched Draven tilt his head toward Lissa, guiding her into the tasting room with an easy intimacy. His hand landed at Lissa's lower back, palm flat against the smooth fabric. They exchanged a private smile, a radiant curve on their lips reserved for moments when no one else mattered. They laughed softly, a shared conversation that sounded like music to them, but like a dagger in Rynn's chest. For a heartbeat, the room dissolved, the oak table, the crystal goblets, the pastel linens, all evaporated. The only reality was the tableau of Draven and Lissa, their closeness a visceral betrayal. "Rynn." Draven's voice cracked the fragile illusion. He held the canopy tray as if it were a prop in a dream. "I thought you'd be with Marisol in the greenhouse." Rynn blinked, disbelief clouding her vision. She realized she'd taken a tentative step forward, and now the ground felt slick under her feet. She clutched her clipboard to her chest, pressing the ballroom's swirling lavender scent out of her nostrils. Why is Lissa here?" Her voice shook, each word a shard of glass. Draven's smile dropped, replaced by the slightest falter of worry. She said she wanted to see the place, help with floral arrangements." His gaze flicked to Lissa, then back to Rynn. "Rynn, it's not what you think." Lissa moved closer, soft eyes flickering with concern. "Aurelia, please," she began. "I didn't mean..." "Please what?" Rynn cut in, voice rising. She felt tears burn behind her eyelids. The careful cordiality of the tasting room felt brittle, a thin place about to crack open. "Explain to me how you two see this as normal. My best friend and my fiancé, laughing together in the place where I thought everything was perfect." Draven set down the tray with a soft clang. He ran a hand through his hair, the well-groomed facade slipping. "Rynn, listen, let me explain." Rynn's world narrowed to the raw pain she felt in her chest. The blueprint of her wedding day, all her hopes and trust, unraveled like a tapestry torn by unseen hands. She realized the wedding bouquet she had envisioned in her mind, white peonies bound by silver ribbon, was now a twisted fiction. "No, whisper." Her voice thick. "You don't get to explain." She planted her feet, trembling, nails digging into the leather of her clipboard. "I trusted you both. I invited you into my studio, my life. You helped me rebuild myself, both of you." Lissa's mouth quivered. She opened and closed it, searching for the right words. "Aurelia, Rynn's tears spilled, the first sob bursting free as she turned sharply away. She fled down the room's plush aisle, passing rows of chiavari chairs draped in linen, petals scattered like confetti. Guests strolling through for aperitifs paused, murmuring, sensing the fracture in the air. Rynn didn't care. Every step pounded agony through her veins until she reached the greenhouse doors. Slamming into the cool shade, she found herself on a narrow stone path lined with lavender and midnight blue salvia. Wind tinkled through copper chimes, carrying faint laughter behind her. She stumbled to a wrought iron bench beneath an arch of climbing roses spilling over ancient brick. There, she curled inward, burying her head in her arms. Drops fell on her sleeve, tears mingling with the day's fading golden light. She pressed her forehead to the iron slats, grit and dejection biting at her skin. Wild grapes hung heavy overhead, their tangy scent turning sour in her mind. Behind her, Draven's footsteps faltered. He called her name, voice crackling with regret. Lissa followed, each step echoing in the greenhouse's hushed intimacy. They paused at the bench, silhouettes backlit by the amber glow of lanterns hung between vines. Draven knelt beside Rynn, hands outstretched. "Rynn, I'm so sorry," he said, voice hushed. This was never meant to happen." Rynn closed her eyes, the words meaningless noise. Betrayal pulsed in her veins like molten metal. She could taste the bitterness of loss on her tongue. "You say that now," she whispered, "but you've turned everything I believed in to ash." Lissa sank to her knees on the opposite side. "Aurelia, please let me explain." "Don't," Rynn hissed. Every fiber of her being recoiled from their combined deceit. "I don't want to hear it. I don't want your excuses. I want my life back." Draven's shoulders sagged. He looked helpless, the polished confidence he once wore like armor reduced to trembling vulnerability. He glanced at Lissa, whose face was pale and drawn. They had formed an alliance into which Rynn had poured her loyalty, and now it all lay in ruins. Lissa stood abruptly, tears sliding freely. "Aurelia, you deserve the truth, even if it hurts." She hesitated, then turned to Draven. "Cashin," she began, using his birth name, stripping away all facade. Draven swallowed. He rose, stepping toward them both. "Rynn," he said slowly, "Lissa and it wasn't planned. The wedding planning, it became so overwhelming. I felt like I was losing myself." Lissa was there to listen. It spiraled. Each word fell like guilty confession. "I've betrayed you in the worst possible way. I'm so sorry." Rynn's chest tightened. His explanation, overwhelming wedding planning, felt almost mocking. "So you cheated because you couldn't handle a few details?" she spat. Draven closed his eyes, regret etched in every line of his face. "No, it isn't that simple. But I take full responsibility. I broke our trust." Lissa's voice joined him in apology. "Aurelia, I never intended to betray our friendship. I was lost too." She glanced at Draven, anguish flickering. "It was a mistake." Rynn's vision blurred. She rose unsteadily, every muscle trembling with rage and heartbreak. She backed away toward the greenhouse's ivy-wrapped exit. "Leave me alone," she whispered, voice quivering. They exchanged pained glances, powerless to reach her. She stepped outside, the night air cold against her wet cheeks. Silverwood's lanterns glowed down the path. The world around her shimmered with moonlight on grape leaves, the hush of cicadas filling the air. Betrayal wrapped around her heart like ice, each breath painful. She sank to the ground beneath an ancient oak, leaving behind the vision of her wedding she had crafted so lovingly. In the silence, punctuated only by the rustle of leaves, Rynn felt a fierce ember ignite deep within her chest, a flicker of anger, pain, and resolve. She closed her eyes and whispered into the darkness, "I will rise. From these ashes, I will rise again." As the moon climbed higher, Aurelia Moonshadow vowed that her story, like the phoenix she had painted, would be one of rebirth, forged from betrayal but unbroken by it. She would rebuild her life on her own terms, piece by shattered piece, until the world saw not the woman who'd been betrayed, but the phoenix reborn from her own flames. Ryn's world had shattered at Silverwood Vine Hollow, but she refused to collapse under the weight of betrayal. 2 nights later, under a crescent moon, she steeled herself for a confrontation that would either break her or finally give her the closure she desperately needed. Clad in a simple black leather jacket and jeans, she drove through silent country roads, headlights cutting swaths of white through the darkness. Each mile brought her closer to Blackthorn Manor Hotel. Blackthorn's facade was a brooding presence, tall, stone walls cloaked in ivy, windows dark except for a single light in the upstairs suite Draven and Lyssa shared on the hotel's artist's wing. Rynn parked her car under a gnarled oak, boots crunching on gravel as she approached the entrance. Her heart thundered in her chest, a war drum of fear and fury. Inside the lobby, muted amber lamps cast long shadows. Plush burgundy chairs lined a wide hallway carpeted with intricate damask patterns. Ryn's footsteps echoed as she pressed the elevator call button. The doors opened with a soft ding, revealing a brushed bronze interior panel etched with floor numbers. She selected for and took a steadying breath as the cabin ascended. On the 4th floor, she followed the corridor's low-hung lanterns to Suite 412. The door stood slightly ajar. She slipped inside, dropping her jacket onto a chaise longue draped with silk throw pillows. The suite's loft-style layout revealed a living area with dark hardwood floors, a small writing desk, and French doors leading out to a private balcony. Beyond a half-wall, a king-size bed lay unmade. Sheets tangled. The air still held the faint trace of Lyssa's signature jasmine perfume mixed with Draven's cologne. Ryn's throat tightened. She pulled out her phone, hands trembling, and took a single photo, wide enough to capture the scene. Lyssa's gown tossed across the foot of the bed, and on the writing desk, a pair of wine glasses, still half full. She forced herself to lower the phone and closed the distance to the bed. The sheets were cool under her fingertips, as though haunted by 2 bodies that had burned hotter than any flame. Her breath caught. The sense memory, Draven's strong arm, Lyssa's head tipped toward his shoulder, still tormented her. She whispered, "I'm here," into the hush, as if they might materialize before her. Then she turned and strode toward the balcony doors. Outside, the gorge stretched beneath her, moonlight dancing on the river's ribbon. She stepped onto the balcony's wrought iron railing and held onto the banister, inhaling the crisp night air. The world seemed impossibly quiet, save for a distant owl's call. Ryn's anger twisted within her, her heart raw. "Enough," she muttered, voice low. She closed her eyes, letting the gorge's ancient calm seep into her bones. Memories of happier times flickered. Painting with Lyssa in her loft, tasting Pinot Noir with Draven at Silverwood's inaugural visit. Those memories stung, but as she stood against the night air, Rynn realized they belonged to who she was and who she would no longer be. She turned back inside. Footprints in the carpet led to the desk. Rynn picked up the wine glasses, half empty, and sank onto the edge of the chaise. She brought one to her lips and took a silent sip, tart red wine sliding down her throat like acid. She set the glass down, her vision blurrier now. The room tilted. A soft click behind her froze her blood. Draven's reflection appeared in the living area's tall mirror, framed in distressed silver. He stepped forward, pale, eyes haunted.
"Rynn?"
he said, voice thick with trepidation. She rose, wobbling slightly, and met his gaze across the room. "You left me no choice." Her words were clipped, steel-edged. Draven took half a step forward, then hesitated. "I know I hurt you." His voice wavered. "I want to make this right." He glanced toward the bedroom. "Lyssa." "She's not the one I want to talk to," Rynn interrupted, voice trembling with anger. "You are." She crossed her arms. "You want to make it right? Start by telling me why." Draven rubbed his hands together, pacing in place. "Because I love you. Because I made a mistake. A terrible mistake." He opened his mouth, then closed it, as if the words were too heavy. "I was scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of failing. Scared of being inadequate." Ryn's chest constricted. You think cheating is a cure for fear? Her eyes glittered. You were afraid, and your solution was betrayal? Help me understand your logic. Draven's face crumpled. He sank onto the chaise opposite her. I know it sounds insane, but when I felt trapped in this perfect picture scenario, wedding planning, guest lists, expectations, it felt like I was suffocating. Lyssa showed up with empathy, with understanding. She listened without pressure. It had happened. Rynn clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. So you escaped into her arms. Rather than talk to me, she snapped. I trusted you. Trusted us. Draven's head bowed. I'm sorry. He looked up, eyes brimming. I wish I could undo it. I can't. Silence stretched. Rynn's mind whirled. She wanted to scream at him, to shake him until he understood the depth of her pain. Instead, her knees went weak, and she slid to the floor. Tears slipped free. Her breath hitching. She burrowed her head into her knees. Draven knelt beside her, silently placing a hand on her shoulder. She bucked away, yanking to her feet. Don't touch me, she hissed. Voice raw. Draven withdrew his hand. I understand. His voice cracked. I'll leave you alone. He walked toward the door, shoulders sagging. Rynn didn't watch him go. Her gaze fixed on the distant lights of the gorge, as if looking for an escape. The room spun with guilt and grief. She slid the balcony doors open again and stumbled outside. Night embraced her. The world felt immense and empty. She teetered near the railing, not caring if she fell, until she gripped the cold metal bars. The gorge hummed softly below, an ancient song of stone and water. Rynn inhaled the damp air, steeling herself. Downstairs, Draven's footsteps faded. Rynn closed the balcony doors and leaned against them until they clicked softly. She pressed her forehead to the glass, breathing hard. Every memory of trust felt scorched, every future hope obliterated. She turned and rummaged through open drawers on a side table until she found her cell phone. She typed a single message to Kaelin Stormrider. I need help.
Mr. Ember. Now.
She hit send, pocketed the phone, and grabbed her leather jacket. Rynn hurried down the hallway, pooling adrenaline surging in her veins. At the reception desk, she mumbled to a startled night clerk. I'm checking out. I'll settle my bill. She couldn't bring herself to meet his eyes. She felt exposed, raw, as if every soul in the manor could sense her heartbreak. In the lobby's marble light, she pulled her jacket hood up and strode out to her car. The air was cool against her flushed cheeks. She fumbled for the keys in her pocket and started the engine. Headlights slicing through the night as she sped away from Blackthorn Manor. The drive to Mist and Ember Cafe in Willow Creek took 20 minutes. The cafe's neon sign, soft amber letters against a misted window, pulled her in like a beacon. She parked under a single street lamp and stepped out, boots heavy on asphalt. Inside, the cafe was nearly empty. Only one patron hunched over a laptop, a few candles flickering on wooden tables. The air smelled of cinnamon and firewood. A barista's gentle strum of acoustic guitar drifted from a corner speaker. Rynn's shoulders sagged as she slid onto a high-backed stool at the bar and rested her head on folded arms. Moments later, Selim Starling, the cafe's owner and her unexpected savior, appeared with a warm mug of chamomile tea. His hazel eyes conveyed concern without question. You all right? He asked quietly, setting the cup before her. Rynn blinked, pulling her gaze from the linens of her shattered trust to his calm face. She tried to speak, but tears welled again. Selim waited. She sniffed, reached for the mug, and let its warmth seep into her hands. They betrayed me, she whispered, voice hoarse. I thought, she swallowed. I thought love was enough. Selim nodded slowly, sliding a thick paper napkin across the counter. Take your time. Rynn clutched the napkin, its rough texture grounding her. She took a shaky sip of tea. Warm liquid soothed her throat. The acoustic guitar changed chords, a slow, comforting lullaby. I went to confront him, she admitted, voice trembling. But it was worse than I imagined. I couldn't stay. I ran. She closed her eyes. I don't know what to do. Selim's expression softened. He set another mug before her, this time a small bowl of whipped cream-topped hot chocolate sprinkled with cinnamon.
Here, he said.
For when chamomile isn't enough. Rynn managed a watery smile. Thank you. Selim nodded and walked away, returning minutes later with a folded throw blanket. He draped it around her shoulders. The gesture was so simple, so human, it made her chest ache. You're safe here, he said, voice quiet.
No judgment.
Take all the time you need. Rynn hugged the blanket around her tighter, leaning into its warmth. She sipped hot chocolate, the rich sweetness a balm. Around her, the cafe's soft lighting and gentle melody cocooned her. She let the tears come and go, unashamed. Outside, wind rustled fallen leaves, and a lone car passed by. Inside mist and ember, Rynn found her refuge, a place where heartbreak could be cradled, where betrayal's sting could dull in the company of kindness and quiet music. Rynn didn't know what tomorrow would bring, whether she would return to Silverwood Vine Hollow to reclaim her plans or chart a new path, only that in this moment, she was not alone. And sometimes, that was enough. When at last her tears subsided and her spirit steadied, Rynn lifted her head. She traced the rim of her mug, then exhaled a breath she didn't know she was holding. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in days, she felt the faintest stirrings of hope. A phoenix could rise again, and perhaps so could she. Days after the storm at Blackthorn Manor, Rynn retreated into a world of half-finished paintings and sleepless nights. Betrayal had shattered her trust, and she wrapped herself in solitude, refusing to speak to Draven or Alyssa. But grief eventually surrendered to a burning need for answers. Why had they done this? What dark impulse had led her confidant and fiancé into a secret liaison? On a cold morning in early winter, Rynn found herself at Ironwood Forge Gym and Cafe, the very place Kaelin Stormrider had reignited her spark. She sat at a corner table, steaming cappuccino cradled in both hands, staring at her reflection in the cafe's wide window. Outside, drizzle misted against the glass, but inside, the world pulsed with soft jazz and barista chatter. Kaelin slid into the seat opposite her, his athletic frame softened by concern. You said you wanted to hear it from them, he reminded gently. Are you ready? Rynn nodded, setting her cup down with a determined clink. 5 minutes later, Draven Nightfall appeared, his usual polish replaced by crumpled fatigue. Behind him, Lyssa Veilwhisper moved quietly, her sapphire dress exchanged for a simple gray sweater and jeans. Their contrast, Draven's rigid formality and Lyssa's subdued vulnerability, was striking. Rynn's chest tightened. Start with you, she said, voice steady but low. Lyssa. Lyssa swallowed, brushing a loose curl behind her ear. She ran a nervous hand along the table's edge before meeting Rynn's gaze. Aurelia, I never wanted to hurt you, she began, voice trembling. But I found myself in a place of profound loneliness. She glanced at Draven, hesitating. When Rynn's career got that second wind, Phoenix Reborn, the gallery shows, I was proud but also faded into the background. My vlogs, my travel stories, they felt hollow compared to what you built. She paused, drawing a shaky breath. Then Draven and I reconnected at your gallery opening. He was so confident, so certain of your future together. I envied that certainty. I envied the partnership you two had. I thought, if someone as amazing as him could want me, maybe I could finally matter. Lyssa's voice cracked. It was stupid. Ego and insecurity collided, and one evening, in a moment of weakness, I offered him an escape. Someone who wouldn't pressure him with wedding plans or business strategies. Rynn's fingers trembled on the tabletop. She found herself staring at a chipped coffee mug across from her, willing herself not to look away at Lyssa's remorseful eyes. The hush in the cafe deepened, as if the piano keys had fallen silent. Draven reached out, hand hovering above Lyssa's before retreating. Rynn turned her head, signaling him to speak next. Draven inhaled a slow, pained breath. Rynn, I need you to understand how lost I felt, he said, voice raw. You rebuilt your life, art exhibitions, that gallery show in Chicago. Meanwhile, I was climbing corporate ladders at Nebula Dynamics, facing daily stress that kept me up at night, performance targets that never stayed met, and an expectation to be a rock. I believed that was my role. Perfect fiancé, the rock you'd always lean on. He closed his eyes, memories flickering over his features. But the pressure mounted: family expectations, brand partnerships, guest lists, seating charts. Every day felt like walking a tightrope, where one wrong move could fall us both into ruin. In my vulnerability, I confided in Lissa. She reminded me of simpler days, late-night studio critiques, exploring hidden alleys in Portland, free from deadlines. With her, I felt unburdened. It wasn't love, not at first. It was relief, like drowning and finally catching your breath. Draven's shoulders slumped. I justified it as a harmless fling, a pause to rediscover myself. But the pause became something else, something I couldn't untangle. I betrayed you, Rynn, and I own that. I was afraid to come clean because I thought telling you would destroy you. And here we are. His voice broke on the last words. Silence enveloped them. Ryn's heart pounded with a tumult of anger, sorrow, and a sliver of unexpected empathy. She recognized human frailty in Draven's confession and pinpointed the same insecurity that had driven Lissa. Both had sought escape through forbidden solace, Lissa through admiration, Draven through understanding, and had colluded in a mistake that wounded the three of them. At last she spoke, voice sharp yet calm. You both acted out of fear, Lissa, fear of insignificance, and Draven, fear of failure. But escaping through betrayal only compounded your fears and shattered mine. She let the words settle. Thank you for your honesty. I needed to hear it, though it hurts more than I can say. Lissa covered her eyes with one hand, knees trembling beneath the table. Draven's head bowed. Rynn closed her eyes, drawing strength from the cafe's gentle warmth. I need time, she continued. Time to process, to heal. I don't know what happens next. But this conversation was necessary. Kaelin rose to her side, slipping a comforting hand onto her shoulder. Lissa and Draven exchanged a final, tearful glance before standing. Draven leaned over and pressed a brief kiss to Ryn's cheek, apologetic, respectful. Lissa, voice choked, whispered, I'm sorry, before slipping out the cafe's back door. As Rynn watched them leave, she felt a calm clarity take root. Their motives, rooted in fear and longing, did not excuse betrayal, but understanding them offered a path forward. She inhaled the cafe's cinnamon-laced air, bracing herself for the long road ahead. In that moment, Rynn realized that rebuilding trust would be arduous, but she would chart her own course, guided by self-awareness, honesty, and the embers of that phoenix spirit she had once painted. When Rynn discovered she was pregnant, the revelation struck like lightning, electric, unexpected, and life-altering. 6 weeks later, on a crisp morning in Portland, she found herself seated across from Draven Nightfall in the sleek conference room of Marina and Holt Family Law. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city's promise of renewal, but inside, the air felt heavy with unfinished business. Between them, family attorney Elena Cruz laid out the co-parenting agreement framework: legal custody, physical custody schedule, financial support, healthcare, education, holiday sharing, and dispute resolution. Ryn's heart thudded as she reviewed the headings. Each term carried monumental weight. She inhaled, meeting Draven's gaze, his usual poise softened by remorse. Elena, Rynn began, voice just above a whisper. We both want what's best for our child. Let's make that the foundation. Draven exhaled. Absolutely, he agreed. I'm committed to doing right by you and by our baby. Elena Cruz nodded and began typing. We'll start with legal custody, decision-making authority for healthcare, education, and religion. Are we in agreement on joint legal custody? Rynn and Draven exchanged a look. Yes, they answered in unison. Physical custody schedule, Cruz continued. We need to decide how parenting time will be divided. Typical options include alternating weeks, 2-2-3 schedules, or longer blocks. What works for both of you? Ryn's mind flickered to her freelance illustration deadlines and Draven's fixed schedule at Nebula Dynamics. I propose 2-week blocks, she said. Weeks 1 and 2 with me in Portland. Weeks 3 and 4 with Draven in Asheville. Longer stretches give stability and reduce transfers. Draven nodded emphatically. 2-week periods make sense. Our child will have consistency. No daily upheaval. And we can maintain routines. Elena typed the terms under physical custody. Alternate 2-week blocks. Mid-block video check-ins every Wednesday evening. Shared online calendar for scheduling. Next came parental responsibilities. Rynn outlined her freelance flexibility. During my 2-week block, I handle morning routines, meal prep, and day-to-day care. Draven handles evening feedings during my block. Draven added, during my 2-week block, I'll adjust my office hours, start an hour earlier, to cover morning drop-offs and bedtime responsibilities. Cruz recorded the division of daily tasks, nodding. We'll specify morning care by parent A, evening care by parent B, alternating per custody block. They moved on to financial support. Under Oregon guidelines, Draven's higher salary triggered support figures. Elena explained the state's child support formula. Rynn listened as Cruz outlined a monthly payment. Draven will pay $1.250 per month during Ryn's block to equalize expenses, Cruz said. Ryn's shoulders relaxed at the fairness. Draven looked relieved to see the number align with their earlier discussions. Under extraordinary expenses, childcare, medical deductibles, extracurricular activities, they agreed to a 50-50 split. Draven affirmed, any cost above standard support will be divided equally. We'll submit receipts within 14 days. Next was healthcare and insurance. Draven's employer plan covered dependents at lower premiums. Rynn volunteered, our child will be on Draven's plan. I'll handle co-payments and out-of-pocket costs promptly. Draven agreed to notify Rynn within 24 hours of any medical emergency. Elena added a clause for sharing all medical records through a secure portal. They addressed education and extracurriculars. Rynn proposed enrolling their child in a hybrid Montessori program with campuses in both Portland and Asheville. The curriculum stays consistent, and we each handle local field trips, she explained. Draven brightened at the creative solution. Perfect. Our child gets the best of both communities. Elena noted the clause. Shared decision-making on education. If disagreement arises, proceed to mediation with Dr. Camille Hartley. Under holidays and vacations, they structured a rotating schedule. Mother's Day and Thanksgiving with Rynn, Father's Day and 4th of July with Draven. Christmas and Easter would alternate annually. Each parent may plan 1 week of summer vacation, Rynn added. We'll finalize dates by March 1st each year. Draven smiled. Agreed. They then discussed communication and dispute resolution. Elena emphasized regular check-ins. Rynn requested weekly Sunday evening video calls to review schedules and address issues. Draven nodded. Elena also mandated that any disputes enter mediation before any court filing. Finally, enforcement and modification. Elena explained how the court would enforce the agreement and how either party could request modifications for significant life changes, relocation, job shifts, new marriages. Rynn appreciated the flexibility. Elena Cruz closed her notebook. If you're both satisfied, we'll prepare the final document for signatures. Once signed, I will file it with the clerk's office. And it becomes enforceable. Rynn and Draven leaned forward, reviewing the consolidated agreement. Rynn traced her finger over the clauses, absorbing the reality of their co-parenting plan. This was not the fairy tale wedding vow she had once dreamed of. It was something more resilient, a covenant bound by the well-being of their child rather than romantic idealism. Draven reached across the table and placed his hand gently over Rynn's. She looked up, recognizing the tremor of vulnerability in his eyes. Thank you, she said softly, for choosing to do this. Draven squeezed her hand. Our child deserves our best effort, structured, fair, and loving. As they signed, Rynn felt a cautious optimism bloom. They closed the folder, each keeping a copy. Rynn tucked her copy under her arm as they walked out into the bright afternoon. The sun warmed the courthouse steps, and Rynn inhaled, tasting hope in the spring air. They had not restored what was broken between them, but they had forged a new framework, an architecture of care and cooperation that would guard their child's heart above all else. And in that, Rynn found a measure of peace. The future was no longer a void, but a map they would navigate together, one thoughtfully negotiated step at a time. The first light of spring crept through the towering windows of the starlit Beacon Gallery in Chicago, illuminating every brushstroke on Aurelia, Rynn, Moonshadow's monumental triptych. She stood before Afterglow of Ashes, a canvas nearly 20 feet wide spread across 3 panels, the leftmost panel a single, trembling ember nestled in an expanse of coal-black shadow. The center panel erupting in molten swirls of orange, amber, and gold, the rightmost panel showing a majestic phoenix ascending, its wings unfurled, each feather sheathed in the pale pink glow of dawn. Rynn's heart swelled with something she hadn't felt in many months, pure, unguarded pride. Nearly a year had passed since the life inside her was first detected, a tiny heartbeat that startled and exhilarated her in equal measure. Back then, winter's deep betrayal had frozen her trust solid, leaving her spirit brittle as glass. But seasons change, and as spring coaxed first blooms from barren branches, Rynn found her own heart slowly thawing. Summers brought long days of painting under open skies, each sunset a promise of renewal. Now, standing before this final canvas, she saw her journey laid bare, from heartbreak to hope, from ashes to flight. The gallery doors opened precisely at 6 o'clock, and a hush fell as the first guests entered. Art critics in tailored wool coats whispered among themselves. Professors from the School of the Art Institute in tweed elbow patches admired the framing. Devoted collectors clutched slender champagne flutes, eager for the unveiling. Rynn, dressed in a rust-colored silk gown whose pleats recalled the phoenix's plumage, greeted each guest with measured grace. Her hair, once rumpled and wild during the low points of her recovery, now fell in deliberate waves, an outward reflection of her inner balance. As the attendees drifted past Afterglow of Ashes, soft gasps and murmurs rippled through the space. An elderly curator paused before the left panel. "Look at that ember," she murmured to her companion. All alone against the void, yet so full of potential. A young painter beside her agreed. "It's as if we can witness that ember's heartbeat." Under the track lights, the metallic leaf embedded in the acrylic seemed to flicker, lending the piece an almost living quality. Rynn watched the crowd's reactions with a serene smile. Each whispered, "Ooh," and "ah," reminded her that her pain had been transmuted into something beautiful. Midway through the evening, 2 figures emerged from a side corridor, drawing Rynn's gaze. Lysandra, Lissa, Veil Whisper, and Draven Nightfall. Their approach felt surreal. Memories of that dark winter flooded back, the moment she found them together. The searing betrayal that once destroyed her faith. But tonight, they walked side by side, shoulders brushing lightly, buoyed by a fragile, yet genuine camaraderie. Lissa wore a flowing emerald gown that glistened under the gallery's glow. Her hair was pinned back to reveal an expression of hopeful vulnerability. Draven's charcoal blazer and white shirt were impeccably cut. The constellation-patterned cufflinks, he wore a subtle tribute to Rynn's own celestial motifs. They paused before each panel in turn, absorbing the narrative Rynn had painted. Then Lissa stepped forward and gently clasped Rynn's hand. "You've done it," she whispered. "You've shown the world the true meaning of resilience." Rynn's chest tightened and warmth spread through her. "Thank you," she replied softly. Draven nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. He reached into his pocket and produced a small, rose gold box, offering it to Rynn. Inside lay a delicate phoenix pendant, garnet eyes sparkling like embers. Rynn's fingers trembled as she lifted it, then clasped the chain around her neck, its weight a reassuring promise. "It's perfect," she murmured. Draven bowed his head. "May it symbolize forgiveness and my unending commitment to you and our child," he said quietly. In that moment, Rynn felt the last vestiges of anger dissolve, replaced by a gentle warmth of shared understanding. 2 weeks later, the phoenix rose again, this time in a far humbler setting, the back wall of Mist and Ember Cafe in Willow Creek. Where once solitude and tears had marked her first refuge, now crowded tables bore children's paint-splattered smocks, brushes in mason jars, and palettes alive with color. Selim Starling, the cafe's owner, had arranged for a massive reclaimed wood panel to mirror Rynn's gallery triptych. On the left, a faint ember; on the right, a flame blazing upward. Families gathered around. Children shyly waving brushes, parents offering encouraging smiles. Rynn, Lissa, and Draven moved among them, handing out aprons and applause as little artists sketched miniature phoenixes and painted abstract suns. A cluster of preschoolers dipped brushes into yellow paint, daubing sunshine above the ember. Teenagers traced metallic feather patterns with fine-tipped pens. Rynn knelt beside her son, who, knees bruised with excitement, added tiny garnet eyes to his fledgling phoenix. As she guided his hand, his triumphant grin warmed her more than any blossom in spring. Nearby, Lissa curated a story corner, reading aloud an early draft of Ember and Moon, Rynn and Lissa's collaborative children's book, while Draven manned the fuel station, a snack table of fruit-infused water, granola bars,
and veggie wraps.
When a little girl tugged at his sleeve, asking, "Are you the Phoenix's dad?" he smiled and ruffled her hair. "I'm part of the team that helps her fly," he replied. And the child beamed in awe. By day's end, the mural panel gleamed with collective creativity, swirling galaxies, blossoming flowers, and countless small phoenixes. Rynn stepped back, eyes misting with unashamed tears, tears of joy this time, her heart buoyant in the cafe's laughter-filled air. That summer, Rynn and Lissa converged in Rynn's loft studio to finalize Ember and Moon. Lissa perched on a drafting stool, fingers flying across her laptop, while Rynn spread watercolor washes across thick archival paper. They huddled over each page. Lissa's opening line, "Once upon a dark and stormy sky, a tiny ember trembled in the ashes, longing to glow again," prompted Rynn to paint an indigo night sky spangled with silver stars. On the next page, where a gentle voice whispered, "You are braver than the fiercest flame," Rynn illustrated a single white feather, drifting upward. Each spread deepened the narrative of courage, friendship, and transformation. Draven, whenever not on business in Asheville, sat behind them offering fatherly edits, suggesting pacing adjustments, smoothing rhymes, or cross-checking word choices for emerging readers. By autumn's crisp eve, the book was complete. They celebrated with a library reading, children clutching new copies, parents eager for signatures. As Rynn inscribed her name beside a child's bright drawing, she felt the final chapter of her own story coalescing with their shared dream. Life fell into a harmonious rhythm thereafter. Rynn balanced commissioned illustration projects, rendering luminous cityscapes where skyscrapers met constellations, with a part-time teaching position at the Pacific Northwest School of Art. She delighted in mentoring students, sharing not only technique, but the narrative of her phoenix-like rise. Lissa's travel vlog soared as she spotlighted hidden murals, grassroots art collectives, and small-town galleries, her authentic voice drawing a devoted audience. Draven, inspired by their co-parenting success, spearheaded a Family First Fridays initiative at Nebula Dynamics, ensuring employees could log off early to spend weekends with their children. Each Monday morning, Rynn rose before dawn to catch the flight to Asheville, where Draven awaited with their son's delighted grin. 2-week custody blocks allowed both parents deep, uninterrupted stretches to nurture their child. Weekends in Portland often featured surprise visits from Lissa, a cafe latte in hand, notebooks bursting with fresh story ideas. Their co-parenting was not without hiccups, mismatched calendars, last-minute flights, and occasional miscommunications, but mutual respect, clear agreements, and shared purpose kept them united. Disagreements, rather than erupting into acrimony, were deferred to mediation with Dr. Camille Hartley, who guided them through conflict resolution check-ins. Through these structured dialogues, they honed their ability to prioritize their son's well-being above ego. On a crisp October afternoon, Rynn returned to Silverwood Vine Hollow to install her gift to the estate. A permanent outdoor phoenix sculpture, weathered steel rising from a circular reflecting pool. Guests gathered beneath lantern vines as Rynn, Draven, and Lissa together secured the final bolts. Marisol Devereaux, the estate's gracious proprietor, draped a silk ribbon across the phoenix's outstretched wing. With a gentle tug, Rynn released it into the breeze. The assembled crowd applauded softly as she whispered, "May this phoenix remind us that every ending carries the seed of a new beginning." The sculpture's patina caught the slanting sun. Its outspread wings mirrored in the still water below. Rynn placed her hand on the cool steel, imagining her own trials as crucibles that refined rather than destroyed. That evening, beneath a sky strewn with stars, Rynn, Lissa, and Draven walked a vine-shrouded path as their son darted ahead, chasing fireflies. Lanterns glowed along the edges of hedgerows, and the air was alive with the cicadas' gentle hum. They paused at an iron bench engraved with her initials, where Rynn once had sat in despair. Now the bench felt warm, alive with memory and transformation. She turned to Draven and Lissa, their silhouettes painted in lunar light. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for every step, toward heartbreak, toward healing, and now toward hope." They embraced, a group hug uniting artist, muse, and father in a bond stronger than friendship. Rynn gazed upward at the Milky Way arcing overhead. "From ashes," she whispered, "I rise. From embers I soar." The words drifted away like smoke. In that sacred hush, she felt the echo of each season's teaching, that resilience is forged in fire, and that true rebirth emerges when we choose compassion over vengeance, creation over despair. As the cool night air settled, Rynn took a final look at Silverwood Vine Hollow's rolling hills and lantern-lit vines. She traced the path she had walked, from Betrayal's frost to Phoenix's flame, from Solitude's tear-stained benches to communal fires of art and family. She turned toward the manor's open doors, her pendant glinting like a single, triumphant ember against her chest. The phoenix on its steel perch awaited the dawn, and beyond it lay a future unwritten but bright with promise. Aurelia Moonshadow took her first step forward into that promise, certain that her story would never truly end, because a phoenix's flight is an eternal song of endings and beginnings woven into every brave heartbeat. And that brings us to the end of today's story on Truistery Vibes. Don't forget to leave a comment with a quote or moment that touched you the most. Your words give our team the motivation to keep creating more heartfelt stories. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.